All right, kids, Thanksgiving is around the corner, a time when family and friends get together to share a meal, watch football, and, since 2016, maintain the tradition of questioning out loud this year if it's worth it to talk to that one relative. You know the one. And while I usually advocate for people no longer talking to others, this holiday season, I'm going to offer a way to reconcile with a, say, racist, sexist uncle. And the white liberal woman he married. See, when he posts a heartwarming news story on Facebook and Fox Sports tells a human interest story made to inspire before the Dallas Cowboys get beat down, remember this: nothing brings you together like a common enemy.
So I thought, this isn't right. And kind of like prayed. I said, okay, if I'm supposed to do something, let me find him in the next 10 minutes. And with 2 minutes on the clock, I see him pushing the carts. I accosted him in the parking lot.
Stop me and I'll just stop and talk.
I remember I said, it's Memorial Day and you're out here working. And I said, may I ask why? And you had 2 words. You said, to eat.
To eat. Everybody has to eat.
Did y'all's racist uncle get mad? Did his white liberal wife, whom you definitely sent this video to, text you now saying that she's pissed off at the system? Because my regular viewers and subscribers and members see these heartwarming stories for what they really are: perseverance porn. We'll define that in a minute. If your blood isn't boiling, it may be due to this man's issue seemingly being resolved. Yes, Dylan McCormick got the help he needed. Within 24 hours, the GoFundMe page that Karen Swenson started for him had collected more than $244,000. People are so nice, which is great. Swenson said she knew that since McCormick was a veteran and that he's 90 years old working in 90-degree heat, people will respond. 111-degree heat index, by the way. However, what if Swenson wasn't a conventionally attractive, recognizable retired news anchor who had connections to the local community and a decent social media following? What if Winn-Dixie paid McCormick a little more? What if CBS Mornings titled the headline written about this story, "Society, yet again, has colossally failed its most vulnerable populations, this time the elderly," instead of "Former news anchor raises more than $200,000 for elderly veteran pushing shopping carts in sweltering heat"?
Mr. McCormick told Karen that he is a 90-year-old United States Air Force veteran living off of $1,100 in Social Security per month, not married and with no kids. His bills are $2,500 a month. So he works to make up the difference.
What if food was a right here in America and the needs of veterans were taken care of? Maybe the McCormicks of the world shouldn't need to work. And he definitely wants to. He told CBS that he has no plans on retiring. Quote, "If you stop working, you will stop living. The good die young. So it looks like I'm going to be here a long time." According to the article, McCormick said he was grateful for the donations and wished he could thank each individual person. But he was also cautious at the beginning. When Swenson called to tell him about the fundraiser, he hung up, unsure if it was real. Scammers and robot calls are also a problem we need to deal with. McCormick plans to give a quarter of his money to the Catholic Church near his home, so there's that. And if you're like me, dude, stop it with the Columbus and Ohio themed shirts. We get it. But also, you would say no news is good news, but not in a things are probably good if you haven't heard anything kind of way, like King James I meant when he first said it. Nah, we should flip it to no news is good news.
Like so many Americans, James Robertson gets up every morning to go to work. His commute on foot, 21 miles. That's right, more than 10 miles each way.
I walk 21 miles every day just to get to a job that I love.
A factory worker at Shane Molden Engineering, he's never missed a day of work in his 13 years there.
This isn't good. And don't let that positive, upbeat guitar strumming music fool you.
I walk 21 miles every day just to get to a job that I love.
Yeah, that story is actually pretty dark and ominous. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, for the better part of a decade, ever since his 1988 Honda Accord broke down, and Hondas usually run forever, James Robertson walked a combined 21 miles between going to and from work. He took a bus partway there and partway home. Sadly, this isn't a unique story. We've seen this a few times. In spite of the efforts of people like the plant manager's wife, where Robertson works, making him dinner every so often, and a banker who gave him rides occasionally, and told the Detroit Free Press about this long commute, and that newspaper reporting on it with a questionable headline that was read by a 19-year-old college student who created the GoFundMe page. You should know that the goal was set for $5,000 and went up to over $300,000 a short time afterward. That per CBS News. Ford became aware of this effort and gave Robertson a car. Amazing. He didn't even have to pay for it with any of the donations given to him in his honor my word. There's a lot of press there. Look at all those cameras. I guess the cost of a brand new 2018 Ford Taurus is also the price of publicity. Again, it's great that everyday people picked him up where America let him down. Something that's often left out of these segments. Journalism is as much, if not more, about what isn't reported as what is. Here, as is commonly the case, a local reporter is faced with a cruel example of people falling through the cracks of the richest country on earth, and their only contribution is to cherry pick one guy who managed, just barely, to cling to the edge, says Adam Johnson, who coined the term perseverance porn. He will go on to say, all heartwarming tales of perseverance in the face of impossible odds and all ideological agitprop, agitation, and propaganda meant to obscure and decontextualize the harsh reality of dog-eat-dog capitalism. These stories are typically shared for the purposes of poor shaming, typically under the guise of inspirational life advice. A healthy press would take these anecdotes of can-do spirit and ask bigger questions, but time and again, the media mindlessly tells the bootstrap human interest story, never questioning the underlying system at work.
And finally tonight here, our person of the week. You know we love visiting American factories and celebrating workers across this country. But tonight, one worker who is beyond committed. Not just walking to work, walking 10 miles each way because he couldn't afford a new car. Tonight here, the big surprise for him just today. We were there for it and for our person of the week.
Vox, who presented the walking 21 mile story I just covered, also pointed out how journalist Carla Murphy responded to that news. My first thought isn't, oh wow, that's a great worker. I think as a journalist, my first thoughts is, number one, why is he doing that? Number two, are there other people who are doing that in his area? And Robertson's manager set their attendance standard by him. Can't be good. Murphy wrote an essay about the need for working class media, so McCormick and Robertson could almost tell their own stories. Furthermore, Media Matters stated that perseverance porn is so effective at getting our attention because it tends to follow a storytelling structure, sometimes known as the dramatic arc, consisting of, in the case of this Florida teacher story, an introduction, meet this teacher, a rising action, he was diagnosed with cancer, the climax, he realized he doesn't have enough sick days, a falling action, he posted a selfie calling for help, and a resolution. Within 4 days, other teachers had donated enough days to cover his needs. The key might be the happy ending, or the idea that there will be one, and he gets the girl, or the underdog wins the game, or Wiggins will get another job and can afford different shirts. I mentioned sports earlier, and this same thing applies there. Journalist Tom Rinaldi has made a career out of it. His brand at ESPN and Fox News during NFL games and college football games, and especially during the 2024 Olympics, is tear jerkers. Get your tissues ready because that man's puff pieces and insights is going to make you bust a nut. Rinaldi once explained what he thinks compels us the most. What he described revolves around 3 themes. 1, the line between living and dying because it's inherently dramatic in terms of morality and survival. 2, greatness, its pursuit, its cost, its attainment. And 3, forgiveness, the only dynamic that really exists uniquely to humanity and all living things. And not that this is necessarily related to what we're talking about today, but with this 2-yard touchdown run by Ezekiel Elliott against the Buccaneers, according to Apex Marketing, the leap into the Salvation Army kettle almost 8 years ago was worth $200,000 in TV ad exposure to the brand. And when someone accused the Salvation Army of using Zeke to ask us for our money, they claimed that their goal was to provide 58 million meals in the US that year. Darren Ravel reported that in the roughly 12 and a half hours after Elliott's jump until 10:30 a.m. the following Monday morning, the Salvation Army took in $182,000 in online donations. That bump was a 61% increase over the previous week's donations for the Salvation Army and its Red Cattle campaign. Additionally, the Salvation Army received $4 million worth of exposure and equivalent advertising as a result of Elliott's cattle jump. Say what you want about the Salvation Army, but their lofty goal signals how many hungry and food insecure people there are in America. It shouldn't take a touchdown celebration in the No Fun League, which was almost penalized and almost earned Zeke a fine, but didn't, to cue us to donate more. Although I'm glad people did. The Dallas Cowboys be passing out turkeys like Nino Brown, baby. Good on them. Now, the poor, ethnic minorities, children, and the homeless only have to rely on Mr. Beast to give them houses and eyesight, like normal people. None of this makes me feel good, and too much of this impacts children. I could have focused this entire episode on the what about the kids of it all. Every heartwarming human interest story in America is like, he raised $20,000 to keep 200 orphans from being crushed in the orphan crushing machine, and then never asks why an orphan crushing machine exists or why you need to pay to prevent it from being used. And I'm not calling for violence, but perhaps hearts can be warmed by the burning down of these machines and not the hot air coming out of the mouths of pundits and politicians. And I cannot stress enough, I appreciate these people's work ethic and the kindness of strangers, yet survival shouldn't come down to kids selling lemonade or hot cocoa or giving away a birthday allowance. It's all political. It's part of a broader media culture of anecdotes in lieu of the macro moralizing success rather than questioning systemic problems. Perseverance porn may seem harmless, but in highlighting hand-picked cases of people overcoming hardship without showing the thousands that didn't, much less asking broader questions as to what created these conditions, the media traffics in decidedly right-wing tropes. After all, if they can do it, so can you. Right?
It's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
You know, such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that you know, maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more.
He needs intensive care for 6 months. Who pays?
That's what freedom is all about, taking your own risk. This whole idea that you have to prepare and take care of everybody.
You don't have to worry.
That's good, because I work 3 jobs and I feel like I contribute.
You work 3 jobs?
3 jobs, yes.
Uniquely American, isn't it? I mean, that is fantastic that you're doing that.
That was a supercut of now Vice President-elect J.D. Vance explaining that grandparents should help with childcare instead of him advocating for better, more affordable childcare and paid parental leave. Then there was Representative Ron Paul telling Wolf Blitzer that a hypothetical man who chose not to pay for the very expensive employee health insurance offered at the company he works for, that's not exactly worth the money, but goes into a coma, which made Paul say that man should take responsibility for himself. No universal health care, no single payer option, no Medicaid for all, and the audience, who could very well be in that same situation in the future, applauded that. Oh, when Blitzer said,
Are you saying the society should just let him die?
No.
An audience member said, yeah. Additionally, former President George W. Bush sat next to a woman who told him that she has 3 jobs, and he found this to be an impressive indication of a hard-working America. Somehow, some way, didn't tell her that she shouldn't have to do that in these United States. Look, earlier this year, an incarcerated man by the name of Hamza donated $17.74 for relief efforts in Gaza. Filmmaker Justin Mashouf said that this donation was the sum of 136 hours of Hamza's labor in a California prison working as a porter/janitor. Hamza is now out after 38 years and living in Los Angeles. Justin is making a film about him and the viral reactions to the GoFundMe created because of him called 1774. I don't really know what to say. However, even if this video of mine introduced you to perseverance porn, hopefully You can now talk about the sheer levels of messed up this story is. If you still aren't aware of what perseverance porn is, you'll know it when you see it. And if you're addicted to it, then I can't help. I don't want that in my search history. Pulling up bootstraps without the assistance of a social safety net in order to overcome obstacles is the money shot though. For the cultured and initiated, talk about perseverance porn and the politics that lead to it over Thanksgiving. Make your uncle go back to exclusively posting conspiracy theories on Facebook. Well, and links to GoFundMes. It's one of the largest healthcare providers in the country, apparently. We don't need any more trauma bonds around here. Maybe do what Tom Rinaldi said to people who question his methods in tragedy porn. I would just suggest you always have the right not to watch. You always have the right to look away. Yeah, we're gonna be all right. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Michael Wright and Blender Banana. They're new members of the channel, along with welcoming back Benjamin Morrill and Jive Bunny Ferris. Thank you for becoming members and rejoining membership. If you too would like to become a member, I don't really remember how to do that. So, talk about it in the comments. Somebody please help me and them.